My hands are sore. My bones cry out for sleep. Yet my body knows that there's no chance of me picking myself up out of this seat until my 2 hours are up. I'm held here by the invisible chains of the task that we've set before ourselves. All I can do is row and wait for another wave to crash on me. Back and forth I slide, my legs, back and arms pushing and pulling, blinking back the salt water. Sometimes I don't know whether it's my tears or the ocean water streaming down my face. Often I wonder, what on earth am I doing out here? It doesn't take me long to remember. Her name is Alejandra. She changed my life forever. One chilly spring morning, some 6 months before we set off to row the Atlantic Ocean in 2011, I arrived at Heathrow Airport. I was about to meet a survivor of human trafficking. She was the first survivor that I had ever met, so I felt honored, but really quite nervous to meet Alejandra. What would she look like? What should I say? What shouldn't I say? I clung onto my herbal tea as I watched Alejandra walk towards me. She was beautiful in an understated way. She had this gorgeous dark olive skin and long, beautiful, dark flowing hair that holds a certain mystery for a blondie from Finland like me. We sat down in the cafe surrounded by all the typical noise and chaos of the airport. Alejandra began to share her story with me. I braced myself. I had a lump in my throat. Alejandra grew up in Mexico City, and when she was 18, she was offered a job in the north of the city. It was a lie. She was trapped, sold, and shipped out to the highest bidder. For the next 5 years, Alejandra was a slave, forced to work as a prostitute. She was passed from brothel to brothel as one owner traded her for another. She became like livestock, her body seen only as a means of creating a profit. My heart was racing, my palms were sweating. She cried as she spoke. We both did. I froze as she told me that some days 20 men would visit her. How can this happen? I screamed internally. One pimp urinated on me and beat me. Another pimp chucked scorpions on me to scare me, she told me, through flowing tears. She was degraded and forced to do things that no human being should ever have to do. Pimps don't want the human spirit alive. They can't sell that. They want the flesh, just alive enough to move, but not strong enough to fight. I was wrecked when there were no more words left to say. I hugged Alejandra. I didn't let her go. I could still remember her floral scented perfume. I said, Alejandra, I'm going to row the Atlantic for you. I'm doing it for you. She reached up to her ears and took out her earrings like something out of a movie. And she smiled and she placed them in my hands. And she said, Julia, keep these and remember me always. I thought William Wilberforce defeated slavery some 200 years ago with the abolition of the Transatlantic slave trade. Back then, 12 million slaves were taken from Africa to the Americas. And yet today, there are 40 million people in slavery. The buying and selling of human beings is bigger now than it ever has been. It's not there, it's here. I thought if slavery did exist, it must be over there in faraway, poverty-stricken countries of the world. And yes, that is true. But it's estimated that there are up to 136,000 people enslaved in the UK today. These are men, women, and children hidden in plain sight. It would blow your mind if you knew how close you came to slavery every day, even as you walked here today. Whether it's the young Vietnamese boy brought here to London, forced to work 20 hours a day for cannabis cultivation. Domestic slaves hidden behind closed doors in homes that we walk by every day. Men exploited in car washes. Workers exploited in cash-only nail bars. Or young girls groomed out of nearby estates, sold to countless men for sex. You can buy a girl in Romania for £4,000, just £4,000. Sell her to an organised crime group in London for £12,000. Sell her 20 times a night is big business. You could sell or take drugs once, but you could sell a human again and again and again. It's a global business worth over $150 billion. We are fighting serious, illegal, and organized crime. When I first learnt about slavery, I was completely overwhelmed. I thought, how can I make a difference to this overwhelmingly huge injustice? So I looked at what was in my hands, what were my skills, what were my talents, what were my areas of influence. I love sport, play sport. I worked in sport at Sky Sports News. Sport's a big part of my world, but by no means am I some professional athlete. An initial half marathon with a long story in between turned into signing up to what's known as the world's toughest rowing race, rowing 3,000 miles from the Canaries to the Caribbean, symbolic of the Transatlantic slave trade route. I put together an international crew of girls united to row for freedom. And we were gunning to be the fastest women ever to row the Atlantic, breaking this fastest women record in sub 50 days. Getting to the start line was an achievement in itself. 18 months of crew changes, learning how to row, raising money, raising awareness. It was the most stretching time of my life. No wonder we were single. But it's amazing how passion mixed with sheer hard graft and determination will take you. As you'd imagine, the row had everything that you would expect: blood, sweat, tears. But worse than that, pepperoni pizza blistered bottoms from rowing 12 hours a day. Sea salt and repetition meant that we had these horrendous pussy boils, blisters, and sores, which called for lots of naked rowing. Frankly, the less clothes, the better. The seasickness was so bad, I just wanted to chuck myself into the sharks. And people often wonder, okay, this is a 7-meter little boat. How did you go to the toilet? Simply bucket and chuck it, sometimes in 50-foot thunderous waves the size of houses. We all love a beautiful sunset. On the ocean at about 5 p.m., the sun would be this gorgeous blaze in red and gold, or a candy floss pink and yellow. It would have been the perfect time to have a G&T. Lord knows I could have murdered a G&T. But what no one thinks about and what no one warned me about was the dark. The worst thing every night after watching that beautiful sunset was that I knew what was coming. 12 hours of darkness. We rode 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 2 hours on, 2 hours off, continuously until we made it to the other side. Sleep deprivation was a beast. Endless nights, utterly exhausted, paralyzed with fear. When I think back to those dark nights, I think that's the closest that I've come to understanding slavery. Alone, scared, numb with pain, physically tough, but mentally exhausting. Fear, as you all well know, is the anticipation of what might happen. It was the absolute knowledge of what will happen that made it worse. Alejandra knew what was coming. No sleep, countless men to break her soul that bit more. When I didn't think that I could go on anymore, I knew that my pain had purpose. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. Everything that could break broke, generally in the middle of the night. And often I would think, Julia, what's worse, rowing another 2 hours or enduring what Alejandra had to go through? It made my pain pale into insignificance. And then, out of nowhere, a shooting star would fly by and leave me speechless in awe and wonder. I was buzzing. Those 2-hour watches magically flew by. Just that glimmer of light kept me hoping, believing, enduring, persisting. Those thick, heavy, tough, dark skies faded as this incredible light show emerged. 1 billion stars and galaxies came out to play. I believe we can be that light. We must be that light. I've looked into the eyes of many survivors over the years. And there is hope. There is light. In 2017, I went to India, which was a life-changing trip. I left my 12-year media career as a result, and I am now honored to work amongst the world's thinkers and leaders at Justice and Care. We rescue victims of human trafficking. 4,987 men, women, and children are now free. That's 4,987 individual lives. People that could be your daughter, your son, your brother, or the girl next door. We have the honor of rescuing victims of human trafficking and providing them with specialist support and aftercare. We dismantle the criminal networks and we bring perpetrators to justice, always alongside police and local law enforcement. Everything that we do is to spark national and international systemic change at the highest level alongside governments. The scale and brutality of slavery can be so overwhelming. It's easy to wonder if we as individuals can actually make a difference. It can feel like a drop in the ocean, but the ocean is made up of all those drops. The moment you step 1 foot out of the ordinary to do anything extraordinary, to change anything in this world, The only thing that I can guarantee you is that there will be setbacks, there will be challenges, as sometimes life could chuck these cruel, unexpected blows. The very week that I said, yay, I'm going to row the Atlantic in my complete naivety, my mum suffered a massive mental breakdown whilst going to work in the TV studio at Sky at 4 a.m, sitting in a psychiatric ward all afternoon, fundraising, raising awareness, leading this global crew, learning how to row. It was the most stretching time of my life. It was Christmas Day on the ocean. We were a couple of weeks into the crossing without having had any contact with our friends or family. It's amazing how you miss the simplest things in life, just standing up, walking down the road, hugs, physical touch, conversation. And so we got our first phone call home on Christmas Day. And after that 10 minutes with my family, I got back onto the oars with tears in my eyes and was rowing away and gazing onto the ocean a bit more attentively than usual. And my eye was drawn to the sun shining on something. And as I looked, just 6 feet away from the boat, I saw a light blue Bombay Sapphire gin bottle. And you know, as I looked a bit closer, there was a letter rolled up in the gin bottle. Lo and behold, a message in the bottle in the middle of the Atlantic. I couldn't believe it. But you know what? I just simply watched as it disappeared away from view. I've kicked myself many times. You know, it would have made an amazing story to tell you all here today, but now we'll never know. I guess I was too slow to react. I was too focused on my rowing. I was scared of not being able to swim back to the boat. And I was scared that the girls would think that I was chasing this silly, childish dream, this message in a bottle. Human trafficking is a bit like that bottle that I failed to stop and grab. Once we see it, or we're confronted by it, or we hear about it, there's an ocean full of reasons why we choose to ignore it. We're too slow to react. We're too focused on our safety and comfort of life as usual. And we're certainly worried about what other people will think about us. Will you be braver than I was? Will you jump out your boat and grab that bottle? Will you dare to dream some audacious dreams? Will you dream it and do it? It will be hard, but it will be worth it. The hard things are the best things. We can't all do everything, but the great news is that we can all do something. If we tolerate slavery, then we are all culpable. Freedom should be the rule, not the exception. What's in your hand? What's your something? Will you fight for freedom? Against all odds, we made it to the other side. We made it in 45 days, breaking 2 Guinness World Records. But you know what? I didn't actually really care about the world records. But they did help us make an even louder noise about slavery. I believe that was our greatest accomplishment. I wouldn't change the setbacks. I wouldn't change the challenges, which blows my mind that I would say that because there were many. Because I found somebody inside of me that I didn't know existed. And that was my greatest personal triumph. These are the earrings that Alejandra gave me. I'd row the Atlantic again in a heartbeat for you, Alejandra.